I mad upon you. Are you washing them? Stand on face first. Yeah, open up. Yeah. Blessing of the Sabbath. Barakatah Yahweh.
Barakatah Yahweh.
Ba'ashem Yahushua.
Ba'ashem Yahushua.
Asherah.
Asherah.
Lathananawa.
Lathananawa.
Ashabach.
Ashabach.
Bashalom.
Bashalom.
The water.
Water.
Amen.
Amen.
English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua, that gives to us the Sabbath and feast. Thank you, so be it. Psalm 121, Ta'alim Ma'ah Hasharayim Akkad. Anya, Orayim, Ainimya, O, Orayim, Mayan, Yabua'a, Izoya, Yabua'a, Mayahawa, Shaisha, Shamayim, Warataza, La'a, Yanathan, Lamawat, Wagalia, Yala'a, Yanawam, Shashamaka, Ana, La'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yishan, Shashoma, Yasharala, Yahweh, Shemaya, Yahweh, Zalia, Ayab, Yad, Yanimya, Yahumam, Ashamash, La'a, Akaya, Rayurat, La'a, Balayala, Yahweh, Yashamaya, Mako, Rai, Yashamar, Napasha, Yahweh, Yashamar, Awalakia, Wabu Ayah, Maita, Wa'ait, Iwulam, Bahasham, Yahushai, the water, Amen.
Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen.
Amen. Shema Yasharala, hear, O Israel. Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah Haynawa, Yahweh, Achad, Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah Haynawa, Yahweh, Achad, Shema Yasharala, Yahweh, Allah Haynawa, Yahweh, Achad,
Deuteronomy 6 and 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Amen.
Amen. Yahweh Tapala, Yahweh's prayer. Abiyanawa, Shabbat Shemayim, Kodash, Haya, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakovka, Taba'a, Ratazawanka, Haya, Aisha, Barataza, Ka, Bashamayim, Latananawa, Lacham, Yawam, Za, Wasalaknawa, Kawafnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kawafyanawa, Wala'a, Abiyanawa, O, Nasai 1, Abo, Awashainawa, Morai, Kaya, Laka, Amalakwa, Wa'ala, Wataparat, Laibulam, Aman,
Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Amen. The Shirama Tazawaf, the 10 Commandments. La'a, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayam, Alhayam, Alpanya. La'a, Taisha, Laka, Poso, Wala'a, Taibudam. La'a, Tarakwaka, Shamwa, Yahawa, Lahaika, Lashua, Zukar, Af, Ayuwam, Ashabaf, Lakodashra, Kabad, Abiyaka, Amaka. La'a, Taratazak, La'a, Tana'at, La'a, Taganab, La'a, Ta'ina, Shukur, La'a, Takamad, Ko, Ashura, La'aika, Aman.
Exodus 20 and 2. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showeth mercy unto the thousand of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold it guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen.
Aman. Ishaba, PPC. Barakata Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Ashura, Natananawa, Parya Gapan, Tuara Aman, La Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, At Yasha Allah. I mad upon you, are you Jerusalem, send us face Jerusalem. Repeat Hebrew only. Barakata Yahweh, Haggadah, Rakaram, Abiyo, Wanawa'a, Aliwan, Malak, Shaw, Shomayim, Warataza, Wako, Lobayim, Kayam, Wagum, Amashiach, Mayahawa, Adawanawa, Ahabnawa, Apala, Ya'itaza, Yahushai, Zakarnawa, Yahweh, Ratazawan, Aimka, Yasha'ala, Aizornawa, Bana, Wasap, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yamyan, Aista, Kaiwamium, Akudam, Babakushai, Shalat, Micah Allah, Ratazawadat, Alahayim, La, Maganawa, Wapanawa, Bashamor, Alnawa, Baikor, Shalat, Awoka, Shaw, Yahushai, Nanawa, Lalamudnawa, Rabiam, Takama, Tabawana, Wada Aif, Shaw, the Barka, Bahasham, Yahushai, Tawada, Tamyad, Aiwalam, Amun. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living, and also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel, Most High, we beg you, right now like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahushua to us to teach us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahushua, thank you always and forever, so be it. Repeat the Hebrew only. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the Lord. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ashura, Natananawa, Adorah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the light to see. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ashura, Natananawa, Awor, La'orah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the remson to call the people. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ashura, Natananawa, Quran, Ayo, Lakara, A'ain. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahushua that gives to us the olive oil to anoint Israel. Barakata Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ashura, Natananawa, Ashaman, Zayaf, Lamashak, Yasha Allah. Yeshua, please be seated. All right, Shalom, Yasharala.
Shalom. Shalom.
Welcome to Hayasharala Kanas. Shalom, those watching online. Shalom, those listening on a conference line. Shalom to those here in Philly, where we conduct our service. Welcome to Hayasharala Kanas once again, where we teach that the so-called Negroes and Hispanics, the native, as well as those they call the Hispanics, right? The so-called Hispanics. They are the real Jews that the Bible speaks of. They make up the 12th tribe of the nation of Israel. Today is the Lord's Sabbath day. As every week, we have 7 days, 6 days. Thou shalt labor and do all thy work, and the 7 days the Sabbath of the Lord thy power. In that day we come to pay respect to the Lord who created all things, and will have this day as his day to come and do service for him. All right, today's reading is going to be in the book of 1Maccabees, the 8th chapter and the 9th chapter. My name is Kaham Pukwad. I will be presiding over the service. And we're going to be reading the book of Maccabees, where we will be learning some wisdom, get some knowledge and insight about the Maccabees as we've been reading all throughout. In the book of the Maccabees is found in the Apocrypha, which is part of the Bible, which if you have a 1611 King James Bible, the Apocrypha will be found in it. But it was removed out of the original Bible. Okay, so now we have the Apocrypha. Since it is part of the Bible, we should be reading the chapters and understand, pray the Most High to give us understanding of what we are reading. All right, so we're going to read about the Maccabees, which means the hammer. The Maccabees was led by a group of Israelites, and Judas was the general of that group of Israelites, right? When his parent died, he gave him instruction and put him head of that group of valiant men who would preserve and fight to preserve the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments, and to keep our way of life, which is following his instructions. Right? As we are in the midst of many nations who have their own set of habits and laws and rules, us being the children of the Most High in a land given to them by the Most High, as we read in Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. So the wicked would have his way of doing things, which would contradict what's in the Bible. So when the children of the Most High is following what's in the Bible, where the whole world is doing something contrary, it would seem as there is a fight. I mean, there would be a fight, because the law of the Most High should be the number one laws established on the planet Earth. But it is obvious that the world is going contrary to the Most High's way of doing things. So we're going to read different strategies that Judas had in place to make sure that the laws were being preserved, our culture was being preserved. All right. So Patak, you got it?
I got it. Kind
Okay. So we knew that from previous chapters that we read, Judas Maccabeus was fighting to keep our way of life, meaning fighting to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. He won many fights, not by his own might, but because the Most High was with him in all the battles that he fought. Because he was a man chosen by the Most High to do his will, so to fulfill the will of the Lord. So 1 Maccabees, the 8th chapter. All right. 1 Maccabees, the 8th chapter, in verse 1. And it says, now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans. So now as we fight for our way of life to preserve it, once you take out an enemy, be ready for the next enemy. So as long as we live, this is gonna continue to be a fight, right? Especially back then, it was more so about fighting the enemy toe to toe, right? But in today's time, we fighting spiritual enemy. Our spiritual enemy, our spiritual enemy is Satan. Where Israel no longer have to fight at this moment with weapons and go to war and fight physically, but we have another enemy that we have to be careful of, be on the lookout, right? Because if we don't do that, what's gonna happen? We're gonna find ourselves get caught out there, right? Let's read First Peter. First Peter 5 and 8. And Patak, when you get it, you can read it loud.
First Peter
Mm-hmm.
5:8, it says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary is the devil.
Stop again and read it a little louder so people in the conference line can hear.
Okay.
And read every word you see.
First Peter 5th chapter, 8th verse. It says, be sober, be vigilant,
Be
because
vigilant.
or vigilant,
Mhm.
be vigilant, because your adversary is the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour.
All right. So be sober, meaning keep your mind clear, right? Keep your mind clear. Be vigilant. Be on alert. Be on a lookout. Be on a watch. Because the adversary, what is the devil, is like a lion. How does a lion pursue a prey? They watch and they figure where your weakness is and he come after you, right? He won't come after you if he sees that it's gonna take some work or much work than it requires. So he made sure that there's a weakness and then he attack you on your weakness, right? So that's the same way a lion prey, to get meat, to get food. So the devil's food is our soul. Yes, as the lion's food is meat, right? Or the animals. But our soul is the devil's food. So we got to be sober and be vigilant, right? Continue to read verse 9.
He says, whom he resisted, steadfast in faith,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that the same affliction are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world.
Okay. So what is one way Satan come to attack us in our soul? In our soul through doctrines, through ideologies, through viewpoints, right? Who is the representation of Satan on earth today? Esau is the physical, the natural man, the representation of Satan, right? So who have a bunch of doctrine and books out there about the Most High, about how things should be? Who write all these books? Are the majority? Esau, right? So Esau, the natural man, will come at you through different doctrines and ideologies, right? To do Satan's work, spiritual Satan work. But Esau, the natural man, right, the physical man, he's the one that is being used today as the person who's gonna come at you to different viewpoint, ideologies, and doctrine. One doctrine that he pushed, which is religion, and who is the major figure that is being portrayed as Christ in that book? Caesar Borgia. So he puts his picture as the man that is God, right? So let's go get Job 9 and 24 now. Go on. It's important to point out who the wicked is so that we can protect ourselves when we out there. And you can read it when you get it. Job 9 and 24.
Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?
Right. So the earth is given into his hand. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. He covered the face of Yahushai, his image, as we read in Revelation, the description of Christ is being covered up. But when we read the scripture that we read in 1 Peter 5 and 8, it says he's coming as a roaring lion. So that you don't get confused, when you live, do you see a lion coming at you with a book and showing you that this is Christ? No, you don't see a lion. You see a man. Right. But that man is similar to a lion going for prey. Right. So you don't lose your guidance. You have to know exactly who the wicked is. Right? So we don't lose our guidance. So once we don't see a lion and we see a person come in and talk to us and show us some words, some doctrine that, you know, how you say that word? With a sensationalism, meaning appeal to your senses, that seem to make sense, but it is not. He's not a lion. But in the Bible, speaking about a lion, you have to put the lion's picture, align it with how this man comes very subtle.
He's symbolic.
Right. He comes very subtle with his ideologies, right, with his alarming pictures, right, and then he show it to you through media, right, in the school system, and put in the libraries, anywhere that you can acquire a book, anywhere that you can read things, he push it out there, and if you're not careful, you will be fall into his trap. All right, so it's important that we know who this man is. So now back to 1 Maccabees. In the first verse, it says, now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them. So was Judas fighting for himself, or he was fighting out of his own sense of selfishness, or was he fighting to make sure that we have a better way of life by keeping our commandments? Because the reason why he was fighting, he didn't want to fight just for the sake of fighting, just to show that he's a valiant man and he can, you know, conquer different people. He was doing it for a real meaningful purpose. So in order for him to do that, any way he can find for us to live in peace by still keeping our ways of doing things, which is following the Most High's laws, he would do it. At the same time, as he was doing so, the Roman Empire had established itself as a superpower, right? So the goal is not to keep on fighting everybody just to defeat them, just for the sake of, but if we can find a way to keep our law, statutes, and commandments, that's all we ask for, right? To serve the Most High and to do His service. So Judas heard of the Romans, and he heard that they were very mighty. He learned about the history of their fights. So also he learned that they want to make leagues with other nations, with other people, so that they can consolidate their empire, right? As long as you go to them and you state your desire, then they would accept the treaty that you would be making with them, right? So that people can be at peace, right? So Judas Maccabees learn of these things, and they love to make they love to make leagues with people. In verse 2, it says, "In that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble act which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute." So he learned all that history about them. And again, his goal is to seek peace for Israel. So he found out that they were strong people, right? And if you pledge friendship with them, they will accept it, right? And he heard about how they fight many wars and they were brave men, right? And also he heard about what he did, right? You remember the Romans took down the Greeks, right? They took down the Greeks. Even though the Greeks, they weren't really a great empire, right? They had, some colonies. They weren't so organized politically as the Romans, right? The Greeks' rulership was mainly surrounded. The Greek rulership was more so surrounded itself around Alexander. So once Alexander died, the colonies that they have were divided, because Esau can never stand without division. They always have a fight between them, killing their own family members, for power, right? So there's what we're seeing today, right? And in this current political climate. In verse 3 now, "And that they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there. Also, they had put together strategies, right, to take control of the mines in silver and gold that were there in Europe. And he was aware of how they gained control of the whole region by their planning, and they were very patient, right? Even though the place was distant, it's always been in Esau's plan to go and conquer other countries, right, far away from them, right? They always have a mastermind plan to take over. So that's how you see that same spirit all throughout is here, where they go into different countries far away and establish their base there, their army base there. So it's the same spirit back then. It's the same spirit that is continuing to emerge, right? Esau's spirit, right? He's always about control, about taking over things, right? And he always has a plan to do so, long-term plan, you know, how he's gonna dominate. So Judas, being an informed man, knew, right, how to approach the Romans so that we Israelite can have peace, right, while keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So in verse 4 now.
Brother Bacard, when you say Greeks, the Grecians, today they'd be like in Greece, and the Romans be the Italians.
Say that again.
And like when you say like when the Romans took over Greece, or Grecians, but is Grecians, are they today like the area they call Greece? And
right.
Then the Romans, are they like today the Italians, like, you know, like Rome, that's like Italy, Italians, and Greece is like Grecians is like Greece, but they're the same people, they Esau. But I'm saying when they say in the scripture Grecians, those are like today known as Greece, and also the Romans are today like they're the so-called Italians.
Right. They have different groups, different tribes, just like we have tribes. Like you have Alexander. Some people don't even consider him as Greeks. They consider him as Macedonian.
Oh my! Oh, come right. That's in the beginning of the Maccabees. Come.
Right. So they have different sects, different groups. Right. So that's why Greeks itself, when you really look at it, they weren't really like I said, like an empire. They had different group, different faction that conquered different colonies. After Alexander took over, he spent much of his time trying to pacify, you know, the group in the colonies that he had control over. Right, so that's why he couldn't keep everything together. There was always different fight going on in between their empire. Right, so it wasn't like a well organized political empire, you know, by Alexander. He was more so a general than a strategist, you know, to take over and keep power. And you know, after that, they got taken over by the Turks. Right.
What he gonna handle his strategy with him?
No, actually, he wasn't. He was more so a general who knew how to fight, but he weren't, you know, a political that keep things together like a king.
He didn't have the control over all that.
Right. Actually, the Roman Empire was taken over by the Turks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, not the Greeks. All right, so let's go into verse 4 now. And that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them. And you can see, as someone who know how to fight, who knows strategies, as Judas, you got to respect, you got to give respect, you know, not so much respect in a sense you have to they are part of you, but you should never respect in a sense of understand the enemy, right? Understand the enemy so that you don't get yourself caught out there. So Judas learned so that he can find a way, a breakthrough for Israel. So he did a thorough search on the Romans to see how they deal, right? So because he did not want to underestimate the enemy, as a general, he found out what he needed to find out, what was necessary for him to know, right, to help his people. So he found out all these things about the Romans. So when the Romans go and conquer other countries, they of course they're gonna find opposition, and they were able to defeat their enemies, and they went to different places and defeat their enemies. And it's just the same strategy that is being applied today, right? When you see America is in Guam, right? They have bases in, right? They have bases in the Caribbean island in some part. They have bases in Africa, right? So they go to those places, establish treaties with them, and put their bases there.
Right, so then you come to the man.
They be ready, and also they have informant who would let them know, who would infiltrate your government while they pretend to be in friend with you. They gathering information, right? Doing you know, undercover work. So as soon as something come up against their kingdom, they will report it, to their officials. And before you know it, your government get taken out. And you wonder, how did they find out? Right? So they pretty much know how to strategize and to go in different people's countries and take over.
You have to trade like this.
Of the earth till they okay, it says, and the kings also that came against them from the uttermost part of the earth till they had discomfited them and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. So once they beat you, they put taxes on you, right? They put taxes on you. So they put taxes so that they can keep the structure going, right? Because in order for them to expand, they need funds, they need money, right, to support their expansion. So once they take over, they impose heavy taxes on you so they can fund their operation. And they make the people or that government, pay for their expansion. So whenever they crush an enemy, that's what happens. They make them pay. They impose taxes on them. So every year they have to pay taxes to them. Right. So how they started in Rome, in Rome's, they used to have different high profile people to fund the government the money. And then those high profile individuals collect the taxes, right? And interest on the money that they loan the government. Because it was a lot of work to be done, right, to collect those taxes. So in time, the government need money right now, right, to operate. So what they would do is they would get those people to fund the government and then they would be responsible for collecting the taxes, hoping that they would not collect above what they lent the government, right? And that's exactly what's going on right now. That's why you have the Fed, who would front the government the money, right? And as they front the government the money, the government now, through the Internal Revenue Service, they would collect the taxes and then pay the Fed the money, hoping that, you know, they would not get under. So that's why when people say United States, if they're supposed to be so great, how are they in debt? That's how they're in debt, because the government employees, they're in charge of infrastructure, they're in charge of you know, making sure the system run. But for the system to run, they need to money every day on a consistent basis. They need money, but it takes time for the taxes to come in, right? Because people got to go to work, and then they got to collect the taxes afterward. But meanwhile, the government needs money every day, so they borrow the money up front, and then they pay the revenue that they collected from the workers or from other businesses, you know, to pay the Federal Reserve.
So, yeah, it reminds me of the IRS and also the movies like Robin Hood, when they had the sheriff going around collecting the money from the people.
Right.
That is crazy. But if you take over the country, you already stole their wealth, so how do they have money to pay you when you don't rob their bank? You took over the country. I mean,
right. Right. Before then, money used to be, taxes used to be exacted on, I mean, from properties, right? If you own land, properties, if you have any assets. But now you're being taxed on work that you do. It's expended. Even that is not even enough, you know, to service the debt that the government incur on a daily basis.
That's why the IRS is always knocking on your door.
Right. So it's moving at an astronomically speed on a daily basis, because, you know, they need money to function every day. So now you can understand how the Romans, they exact taxes on those people, because they need money to fund their operation. You have to keep the system going. In verse 5 now, besides this, had discovered in battle Philip and Perseus, king of the Scythian, with others that lifted up themselves against them, and had overcome them. Right? So you learn, Judas learn about different kings or different generals that rise up against the Roman, and the manner in which they were able to defeat them. Right? The Macedonians, the Greeks. So they had crushed them and conquered them, right? So in verse 6 now, it says, how also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots, and a very great army, profited by me, by them, and how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reign after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages in that which was agreed upon. Right? So now, when Antiochus, they took him alive, right? In verse 6, verse 6 here it says, they defeated Antiochus, king of Asia, who went to fight against them, and they had a bunch of elephants, as we read the same tactic that they used when Judas went to fight them. So it was their custom to fight in that manner. So this was their strategy of war, right? But they were able to overcome them. And once that happened, they imposed big tributes on them. And also the hostages, that which was agreed upon. So they took those hostage and they demand, a ransom, right? So that they can, either let them go or have an agreement with them so that they can pay. Right? Not only that, they enforced them to surrender some of their great villages. Right? Especially now, the big things, the next wave is going to be lithium, right? At one point is oil. So whenever there's natural resources in someone's land, and that the resources in great demand, you're gonna have a group of elite, right? Such as we see in this government, in different, company CEOs would make league with the government and go into that country and seize that natural resource that they have. So back then, the same spirit that Esau has is the same spirit today. So they would force you to surrender some of your great villages, right, which have supplies of what they need that they can make money off of.
Yeah, they don't want to trade or buy it. They just want to get it,
Right.
Because trading and buying and fear share paying for stuff.
Right.
They just want to get it like back in the days like we would get spoiled.
Mm-hmm. So they come and take it, right? Because to them they can, if they can take it by violence, they come and take it. Just as we were taken over by violence from the west coast of Africa, right, and brought to the Western Hemisphere as slaves. At that time, we were a commodity, right? We were a resource, human resources. We weren't considered as people, as men. We were considered as resources that can be used to further one's interests or to further one's greed. Right. So the same tactic that they used to have is the same tactic that we have today. Let's get a scripture in Matthew 11th and 12th chapter. 11th chapter and 12th verse. Gun. Now I'm 7. Yeah, verse 7. You can read it, Patak, when you get it. And those taxes that they impose is not just on that government, but the government that's going to come after him is generational. They impose those taxes, right, for quite some time, long time. Sometimes you see government, they demand that those taxes, they revise them, after a period of time. Because those taxes, once they put them on your government, is generational. It's gonna go on, go on, go on until someone, rise up and say, listen, I'm not gonna pay those taxes, or let's renegotiate the deal.
11 and 12, it says, and from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffer violence, and the violent take it by force.
Right. So who's gonna be in the kingdom of heaven?
Kingdom of heaven is the Israelites.
It's gonna be the Israelites. So the kingdom is made up of people, right? And the people are the Israelites. Since that time, the kingdom has been taken by violence, meaning the people of the kingdom has been taken by violence. How are we taken from the west coast of Africa? By violence, right? We were forced into cargo slave ships in inhumane situation, how we were transported here. Right. Through the transatlantic slave trade. We were just like animals. Right? And not even useful. I mean, the way they treat animals today, we would treat worse than animals. Right? So the kingdom has been taken by violence. And we are the children of the kingdom. So we have been taken by violence. Spread out all throughout the four corners of the earth. Right? So it's important to know that we are the kingdom. Because the kingdom is made up of people, and the people who are going to be ruling in the kingdom are going to be Israelites. And that's why when we read that scripture, the kingdom has been taken by violence. The people of the kingdom has been taken by violence. Right? So those people who we read in the beginning, the earth is given into their hand. They covered the face of the judges thereof. It's important to know who the wickeds are. Their characteristics, what nationality are they, right? And who are those people? So it's very important to make it clear, so that nobody get confused.
They have a lot to pay for Quad. They killed just by the millions. The same trade that you mentioned, how they like shot you dead, and they mocked you. And it was also Ishmael and the Hamites too, killing us right along with Esau.
Right. It was a conspire against us with the other nations, who are also our enemies. Right. All right, so they had to give hostage and surrender some of their best provinces. Okay. So like the leopard don't change its spot. Okay. The same Esau that you saw back then, it's the same Esau today. All right. There's no new thing under the sun. The spirit is still the same. It just transferred. Right. It just transferred from one shell to the next shell.
They're not wearing Greek uniforms or Roman uniforms, Yeah.
Right. The same fight that you see on TV, they fighting among themselves. They were using it back. They were doing the same thing back then during the Greek Empire. Unite. There's always tension going on between them. Right? It's the same thing that you see happening today. You have the Nazis who consider themselves the better whites. Right? And you have the Confederates who believe that slavery was okay, don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. Just keep things going as it was. Slavery served them right. Why change it? That's the concept of the Confederate. That's why you have 11 states, even after the North was industrialized, not because they wanted to abolish slavery, but it was because they industrialized, and to have slavery was more, to keep the slaves in the plantation was more of a liability. So therefore, just give them jobs and pay them a little money, let them go about their business. So you're not responsible to feed them, to keep them, you know, to take care of them. You're not responsible for that. Just give them a job and let them go get houses from us anyway, from our banks, right? So we can keep them enslaved. It's even better because now they feel like they're free. Right. That's even better because at least right now, you give them just enough, but you know that they have desire, they have necessities. They're gonna acquire, you know, those properties. Just lend them money, but they keep coming back to our job again to keep putting money in our pocket. To be responsible for them. At least they think they're free now. Right? That's even better. And they, you know, some of them we will rise up. We'll give few of them, you know, more opportunities than the other group, just to show that there's balance in the system. If you try, you can make it. Right. Not to say that if you do things and if you pray to the Most High, you cannot acquire certain things. But in the Esau system, when the North got quote unquote independent, it was not because they wanted to abolish slavery, right? It was more so it become industrialized, and to keep us slaves now requires, you know, the resources that required to maintain the slaves. Just give them a little bit, and you don't have to be responsible for them. Right. Right, but the South.
They said that they set slaves free, but that was technology to make them think that they're free, but they're not really.
I mean, think about it. When you have a slave, when you take responsible for someone, you got to give him housing, right?
Right.
You got to give him food,
right,
and plus you got to pay them.
Right.
Now take away the housing, which is one of the biggest expense, because heat and electricity, utilities, things that they burn on top of it, that's the biggest expense.
Right.
If you take that off, that's less of an expense that you have. Right? Now, if you have machines that can produce faster than the slaves can, why would you still have that slaves in your plantation? Give us to supervise the machine or to do things that the machine weren't able to do yet, and let them go and just give them a little pump. So you subtract the housing, you subtract the utility things you have to spend on them. You subtract the food, just you let them by themselves and let them take care of that. Right? So those who can operate the machine better and who, you know, develop skills, you give them a little bit more pay, a higher pay. Right? But the next morning, the next day, they will come back to the workplace voluntarily because now they are responsible for themselves. But if you're responsible for them, you know, you got to pay all those expenses.
Right. Let them go on their own.
Let them go on their own. Give them a leash.
So that was the man proclamation. They came to agreement like that.
Right. The South was not, you know, was far behind, you know, because they were more of an agrarian society. Agriculture, you know, the tools that they have today for agriculture weren't available yet. So they still rely on the slaves. right? To pick the cottons and to plant and things like that.
That was the South.
Right. So they weren't as fast as the North.
Okay.
So they still rely on the slaves. So that's why they fought. They had those 11 states, the Confederate state. You know, they say, okay, we want slavery to remain. And fast forward to today, that's pretty much what the fight is all about. When they say, you know, you have a group who want to take down the statues because they say when we come as this far to abolish slavery, on the statues, those Confederate guys, they were for slavery. Right? So take down the statues, right? Because slavery is over. And you have the other group who fighting against them, who think, hey, why you doing all these things? We are the better white than you. That's where the white supremacy terms come in.
So they come to agreement with the North and the South, right?
Afterward, they come to an agreement by fighting. You remember they had the fight, the Civil War. You have the Confederate fighting other groups. So that's what it was all about. One wanted to keep slavery intact. One say, okay, nah, let's move on. You know, let's move on. Let's advance. Yeah, we got some better. Right, we got some better. So you know, we can sell you equipment and things like that. You don't have to keep the slave. And in fact, it's a better industry.
And they believe that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
Nah, there's no such thing.
I know, but that's
they give him a leash because
Esau got it set up like that.
Right, you give him a leash.
Say that Abraham Lincoln, what? He freed the slaves.
You give him a leash, let them go. They're gonna come back to you because they need jobs, and you own those industries, right?
They got it set up now before in history that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
It was not about freeing the slave. It was about they become industrialized and let them go from your plantation. That's all it is. It's pretty much we move from a plantation to a house that we're responsible to pay for now.
Yeah, but in the book, what they got? Free slave, right?
Right.
But we know the real deal.
Now we know the real deal.
Right.
But you know, before we didn't know the real deal. We think we independent.
All we thought was, oh, Abraham Lincoln, he freed us.
Nah, we just pretty much move. We move from plantation to house, and with the responsibility attached to it. That is no longer master's responsibility to feed you, right? To provide housing for you.
Right.
But in order for you to do that, to be responsible for that property, you got to go back to master's factory to work.
You still got to go back.
Yeah, you still got to go back. How you gonna maintain those your way of life?
Because even when Abraham Lincoln and they put it out, he freed the slaves. They still had to go back.
Right.
You know? Because even though he was the president, he got assassinated too, didn't he?
Right. So the industrial revolution makes slavery more dynamic, meaning it changes.
Right.
But if you understand the concept of the Civil War, you understand that it's when we read in Deuteronomy, it was just a change, you know, from one aspect of slavery, and it, you know, revolutionized slavery through industries.
Okay. So instead of having that, we pick the cotton and everything, put the machines out there, make the slaves come back.
Right. So now what happened now is, since you have the machines, that's where you start having unemployment. So now you don't have enough work for all the slaves. Right? That's where you have the unemployment and so in order for you to maintain the system, to keep it functioning, you got to provide welfare. You got to provide the welfare system. So otherwise you're going to have chaos. So to maintain, you know, the system so that you don't have chaos, right? You have the welfare system for those who cannot, you know, sustain and who cannot find jobs. You have unemployment, they pay unemployment
Right.
right? So that's why you have those systems established, so you can have an organized system. Confusion.
So you keep things in line that way.
Right. You keep having, so that you don't have people running in the street, you don't have riots all over the place. So you have to provide a system or social service system, so you keep people, in line.
Now, you will have some, but at least you don't have outbursts.
Absolutely. Go ahead, y'all can.
Thank you for that information.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, let's say reality is reality.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because even when Trump jumped in there, you know what I mean? His thing was as far as cutting welfare.
Now he can't cut it. Otherwise, you have too much problem.
Right, I'm saying. But he tried, though.
Now he can't.
When he got in there, his thing was, he was going to try to make things much harder for black people.
Right. Even in the plantation, when you have slaves who wanted to work and slaves who don't want to work, and you have slaves who were like hard worker would breaking it in and breaking it out, and you have slaves who didn't want to work. They say, I don't want to work. So what would be the consequences of not want to work? And you got to pay them, and you got to provide housing. What happened? You got to beat them. Since system, you beat them or you kill them. But today things so advanced, you cannot kill them.
Right.
You got to provide something for them. That's where the welfare system come in. Right? You have people who are gonna get tired of the system saying, "I'm not serving that system."
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Now, bringing that on point, Con.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you said, it's the same thing. It's just a difference of industry.
Right.
Same system down there that you have up here. You can just do an analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the ghettos and slums? Look at the log cabins out back. What's the factory? That's the blacksmith shop.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big house? The big house is the gated community.
Right.
And you got a couple Negroes, living in the attic or sleeping on the steps in the big house. That's one or two of us that gets in the gated community. So it's the same system, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when you
say it's not the same system, but the relationship is the same.
Right. Right. And that's what you have. Hitler, quote unquote, killed the so-called Jews.
Right.
It's because Nazism they considered them as a threat to the Aryan race. Aryan race. They feel like they are more superior, to them, and the Jews, they were a threat to them. The so-called Jews were a threat to them.
Okay.
That's how they killed them. But when it comes to the, them being Jews, it was fake. Fake as fake can be. It was it's a hoax. Right. So there's always fight among themselves, and the house divided among itself cannot stand, and that's why it's gonna implode from inside. So we got to be happy when we see these things happening, because exactly what the prophecy says would happen, that's exactly what we are witnessing.
Mm-hmm.
Let them get caught up into politics and all that stuff. We observing the whole thing, from the outside looking in.
Okay.
That's their business. Let them deal with it. The Most High is working with them,
Mm-hmm.
to bring them down.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Our spiritual warfare.
Gone. So let's read verse 8 now.
Most High definitely against abomination, right?
Right.
And today, Esau, he got it set up, man. Woman and woman, and man.
Right.
And before, it was unusual.
Mm-hmm.
It's unusual now. Walk out the door, you see it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Esau set it up that way, and he made the Most High got destroyed in time right. He put a prime example when he was destroyed over there but only 50 people got killed.
Mm-hmm.
That was a gay club. That's
Right.
in Mexico, when
No, it was in Florida. I think that was a recent incident that happened in Florida.
that was in Florida, when everybody in the club was, you know,
Right.
gay. And what happened was, even though everybody, the Anderson girl was in there too.
Right.
She got caught up in it.
Right.
Remember?
So yeah, and the thing is, this system Esau got so strategic, and this guy, he's always planning ahead. Right? He's always planning ahead. As people try to figure out the system, they give you something ahead. They already been planning ahead. They get you now through entertainment. Right? You get, if you're not watching what's going on, they got you to entertainment,
Yeah.
just to keep you pacified.
Well, entertainment definitely.
Right? Just to keep you pacified,
So pacified.
and so that you don't figure it out, that you are still a slave, as Deuteronomy says. Right? You keep your mind occupied, so you don't think about you being a slave.
Right.
Right?
Kaham Pakar.
Khan.
Shalom.
Shalom. Shalom.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something, because I know a lot of stuff is, they're giving misinformation with people like Tariq's history of slavery and different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, slavery was not abolished because they could not house the slaves.
Right.
Because they would build a shack, have 16 people living in a shack.
Mm-hmm.
They would eat like the pigtails, chicken feet, oxtails, guts,
Mm-hmm.
get shrimp and all the scavengers out the sea, catfish.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have to feed them really, but they was making tons of money from free labor. While you have all the billionaires right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So the reason why they wanted to free the slaves, because people, they were trying to stand up and revolt, even though they're not bringing that up. Like people like Nat Turner. Nat Turner, they make it seem like that's an isolated incident,
Mm-hmm.
like Denmark Vesey.
Mm-hmm.
There were several people like that, and they said, how can we still maintain slavery and abolish slavery?
Right.
So what they did was abolish it, and they kept 5 states that had it with Abraham Lincoln's nonsense, and the other states said they abolished it. But the thing was, they were catching us. We didn't have any jobs, anything, land, anything. So they was picking us up and putting us up in the prison system,
Mm-hmm.
which they still do now. And that's why they left that clause in the Constitution that you can have a slave as long as he's in a penal institution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were doing with us when they catch us wandering in the street,
Mm-hmm.
put us in a penal institution.
Right.
And they passed all these laws and stuff to tax us heavily, which they're doing now also with Jeff Beauregard's sessions in the Justice Department. They passed all these laws even since they had that silent march when they were protesting that we were getting lynched and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They came up with laws after they abolished slavery. That's why they don't celebrate Juneteenth anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because they said they're passing laws to keep us down and destroy it. And we weren't the first ones on welfare. Welfare was created for the Great Depression, Caucasians who were out of work.
Right. Right.
So, and we just benefiting from it right now, even though more Caucasians are on welfare.
Right.
But the Great Depression was to help Caucasians. We were just getting the crumbs, and we weren't even entitled to get welfare benefits. Like Mitt Romney's father, he was on welfare.
Right. 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 Thanks for the input. Thanks for the input on that. So all that the Kahan just brought out, also to further clarify that it was not about abolishing slavery. Right? It wasn't about abolishing slavery. It was how can we keep the slave system going,
Right.
right? And keep making money off of them. But as slaves want to revolt because of the inhumane situation that they were put in, right? How can we keep the system going? But eventually the system wouldn't continue, because it would be too oppressed, and also killing people as the world become more connected.
right, and become against slavery and see, how people are living is not right. So now, how do we keep the system going and still maintain, right? Keep making our money, keep the system going, and keep the people enslaved.
Right.
So it was harder, right, to keep the people on the plantation after the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
Because it's, to keep all these people enslaved while they revolt, and you don't have people, shooting and fighting all over the place. And the key is to have the slaves where you put them in a corner where they cannot, you have one or two revolt, you cannot have the whole people start to think that they can revolutionize. So it was harder to maintain. So the Industrial Revolution kind of helped them out. And again, like the Kahan is bringing out, the social system and the welfare system is not meant for, so-called black. It's more so for their society to keep things running so that people don't get out of control. You don't have too much chaos and confusion.
Yeah, come before also the elders forgot to say they started a welfare system because the Caucasian women were doing prostitution because the men was at war, they didn't have no money, so they got into prostitution. That's why they developed a welfare system too.
Right. And then by majority, you have more so-called, these people, the so-called whites in the system in slavery than anybody else. Like the Kahan was bringing out last Sabbath. You have the so-called Jews establish their community based on their reputation. They can come in, they don't have any money, they get into the welfare system and they get properties penny on a dollar. In our community, next thing you know, they push you out, and they once a group of them invaded the community, now it becomes a Jewish community. People, start to respect it, and the price value of that community go up when they got it for a penny on a dollar. Right? It is based on reputation. So Esau has been very strategic on how he maintained the system, but we're glad to see that things are working the way it's working because the Most High will bring him down. And now we back into Maccabees. First Maccabees A in verse, we had verse 9 now. Actually, let me read 8 again. It says, and in the country of India, in Media, in Lydia, and of the goodliest countries, which they took of him, and gave to king, and gave to kings Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them, slew many of them, and carried away captive their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their strong, and turned to be their servants unto this day. Right? So that's how vicious the Romans were, and Judas was aware of all of these things about them. And also when they found out plan that the Greeks had against them, is moreover how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them. So now they found out different plans, different secret plot, right? Because of their operative tactics, they were able to detect when the Grecians were plotting to come against them, and they were able to come first and get them. So now I wonder how they're gonna deal with King Pyongyang from North Korea, because when the Americans go over there, you either torture them and send them back to America, right? So you won't find the same thing that's going on in other countries in North Korea, right? So I don't know what satellite they're gonna use or what kind of spy tactic they're gonna use to come against this guy. And again, I don't think, in my opinion, this man has as much weapon as he doesn't have as much weapon as people might think he has, but he's good for Russia and China, right? They can use him to keep America on its toes, right? To keep him dancing, right? To little North Korea, every time he speaks, you have the leader of the so-called free world, right, responded, not playing right into his hand. I'm sure that he doesn't want, war, but if America were to attack him first, then game will be on. And I don't think he's that naive to attack first.
They got Korea setting up, like, but they got weapons just like we do.
Right. When it comes to technology and weapon, they don't have as much as America has.
Okay.
But the key is a psychological warfare that they playing with the United States. But all war starts in the mind. They start playing with your head first, and Pyongyang is pretty much he's good for that.
What name? Pyongyang.
Pyongyang is Kim Jong-un's second.
Oh, okay.
So he's pretty much there, and he's pretty much helping China and Russia in the same thing. Things that they would say, they would use him to say it. He's in the middle. So even though they may not tell him to say it, directly, but I'm sure that they pretty much like it because it keeps America on its toes.
Okay.
Right? What's the scripture, y'all? Terror shall drive them from to and fro. When you read it, read it when you read it. So they always been very keen in fighting information. Having the CIA and the FBI go in your country. DEA go in your country. Sometimes they even the one bringing the drugs there.
Job 18 and 11.
Job 8 and 11.
No, 18 and 11.
18 and 11.
It says, terror shall make him afraid on every side and shall drive him to his feet.
Right. So that's exactly what Pyongyang is doing right now, drive him to his feet. Especially a man that just just tweet more than anybody, any president that I've ever seen tweeted. Right?
What scripture was that?
React to every little thing against him.
What scripture was that?
That was
Job
18 and 11.
Who?
Job 18 and 11.
Job 18 and 11.
Con.
That's J-O-B.
Yep.
Write it down.
Right? So Job 18 and 11. So we go back to 1Maccabees.
Job 18 and 11. We're gonna line up with.
That links with verse 9. Also verse 10 too. It says verse 10. Yes, I'll read verse 10 now. It says, in that day, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them slew many of them, and carried away captives their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. So they pretty much go out and they strip you of everything you have, and then they make you their slaves. Right? You got no choice. Right? So as time progresses, and people become sensitized to death and cruelty, that's why you have human rights. Every time you quote unquote human rights, every time you have certain atrocities done here in the United States or a government that they don't like, they bring some human rights against you and bring some charges against you for violation of human rights, and they label you a criminal. But the number one criminal are the Caucasians, right? Esau. They're the number one criminal. Right. But they master the art of killing you softly. Right? They master the art of killing you softly. And in some places, they don't kill you softly. They kill you with drones, and they kill you with all kinds of weapons, but they keep it away from the Western media. Right? Keep it away from Western media. Go to different people's countries and exercise things that they cannot exercise here, these days. Right? So that's why also, slavery has changed. It wouldn't take too long, to keep people oppressed. It would be, too much fighting and too much contention. Right? But to have slavery the way it is now, it's ideal. And it's reality here in this land called North, right? In the land of North. Right? Doesn't it seem easier for most people now? Some people will argue that they're not enslaved. Right? Huh? Right. Right. Verse 11 now. It was told him besides how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all other kingdoms and islands that at any time resisted them. Right? This is again giving you the spirit of Esau again, back then and now. Anybody that resisted them, that's it. That's it for you. It's going to be a regime change, such as what's happening right now in Venezuela. Right? They said now he's this close to being a dictator. You already know where that's going. So anybody that opposed them, they get rid of you. Since they cannot get rid of you by violence now, they go and change the government. And if the people that they want to rise against their own government are not rising up, they raise up a group in your country as opposition, and they arm the opposition, right? And they have the opposition use chemical weapon against the people.
Right.
So they go after you now. They say you shoot chemical weapon against the people. Now you're a criminal. Now you got to go now.
Right.
You definitely got to go. And then you have the UN gonna come after you, impose sanctions, and you're gonna have the human rights groups gonna come against you. Now they're gonna label you as the worst criminals on the planet Earth, and they go after you. That is being used now today. The leopard don't change its spot.
The nerve of these guys.
Yeah. So now they call this guy, he's close to being a dictator now. Since they could not get Chavez, I don't know, you know, it's speculation because I don't know for sure, right? They said they got him through other means, right? But him, it's easier to get him. They could not get Chavez in this way. So now they can easily get him in this way because he's not as charismatic as Chavez. Right? So now the plot is against him. And even Bush said, not Bush, Trump said he's gonna use military, you know, and proving that he's not as charismatic as Chavez. He wanted to have a fun conversation with Trump. What kind of fun conversation you want to have with Trump? Right? He should have kept the same thing that this guy used. Pyongyang, I don't have any talk to have with this guy.
Right.
To show that you want to have a conversation with him to explain to them, you know, the situation that's going on, that how he doesn't understand, you know, the situation that's going on in Latin America. This guy don't care about that. It shows that, you know, he's a little weak, right? So that's pretty much what's going on with these people. When you read in verse 11, right? Anybody that's opposed them, oppose their dominion,
Right.
they're gonna come after you. And today, watch out, those are the tactics that is being used. Right? Once things start happening, food shortage, what has this going on right now with our people in Venezuela?
Right.
Inflation is sky high.
Right.
Now you're gonna have humanitarian groups go over there, try to help.
Right.
Usually some of those people who fund them, the US government, give them grants. Who they working for? Whoever funds you owns you. Right? So now they're gonna go there doing, you know, operative work and give misinformation to the Western media. Right. And then to bring him down, and once they bring you down, they put their leaders in their opposition party, and then game over. Verse 11 now. But with their friends and such as rely upon them, they kept amity. That's their allies, right? They have allies. And that they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, and so much as all that heard of their name were afraid of them. Isn't that what's going on today? Same observation that Judas had back then. Isn't it what we having today? Isn't it what we witnessing today? The same observation that he had, the same spirit. Keep in mind, we're not dealing with just flesh and blood.
Right.
You're dealing with spirits. Right? Let's get the scripture in Ecclesiastes. Huh?
They're quiet before him, right? They were afraid of them.
Yeah. Anybody that heard of the name.
So let's go back to the first chapter anyway. With 1 Maccabees 1 and 3.
You want to read that?
Yeah, 1 Maccabees 1 and 3. It says, and went to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. So they were quiet before him. I mean, they were subdued,
right,
under subjection.
1 Maccabees 1 and 3.
Yeah. And they were afraid of them.
Let's get Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 now.
What, 1 Maccabees? That's 1 Maccabees.
Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9.
You said before?
Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9. The same spirit that was back then, it's the same spirit that we're reading about today. There's no new thing under the sun. Things written aforetime was written for our learning. So we're learning about what Judas saw in the spirit of those of those Romans back then, and we know America is an extension of the Roman Empire. Rise up, right? Beast with two horns, Democratic and Republican, right? So now that's the beast right now that we're reading about, pursuing the same thing that they were pursuing back then.
Ecclesiastes what?
Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 9. Same scenario. So now when they start having problem with their own allies now you have issue. And you have their own allies taking advantage of things that that beast has set up, right? Through NAFTA, right? This guy say he's gonna. That was one of the things. One of the main. That was one of the main subject of his one of the main subjects of his campaign. He said his predecessors negotiate bad deals under the NAFTA agreement. So when he come in, he's gonna do away with NAFTA. That's baloney. You cannot get rid of NAFTA just like that.
Well, that's when he had that.
Yeah, he quickly find out that the system that he's inherit is twisted. It's corrupt. So whenever he comes out now, you can see the frustration. Ecclesiastes 1 and 9. The thing that has been, it is that which shall be. And that which is done is that which shall be done. And there's no new thing under the sun. You could say there's new iPhone, there's new airplane, but who built those airplanes? The same people, same spirit died back then, right? They come and learn more, learn different, more technology, became more advanced in terms of learning more things, but all these things was already there. The spirit is still the same. It's just that, we have made some discoveries of things that are already there and know how to, scientifically and technologically put things together.
Yeah, some because what
Yes.
you just said, President Cheney found that out when he got elected. He went, "Oh, this is a good old boy." He said, "I can't change this." So he tried to change it. They had him assassinated.
Yeah, this man, he think he can come and change things just like that.
So we try to do a little bit for the black Kennedy. And all we can't have it do. And he found out it's the good old boys, you know, the Dixie crack, you know. So.
Yeah, this guy is using his show The Apprentice. You fired. This guy is using the same thing in the White House. Go around and fire people. This guy is using The Apprentice tactic. You fired. You ain't not sure that this guy had. Yeah. Huh?
How come his cabinet quit Trump?
Differences of opinion and strategies. They not seeing eye to eye. Yeah. Especially this man think he's the boss. And you know you have bosses. You have those guys also. They boss too. You know they come from they running companies. They more interested in a partnership than having a boss. So that's what's going on. Also, it's ego trip. Pride of men. You know, came in say I'm running this. I'm running a prestigious company, and I don't want my product to get tied up with this guy. You know, ego trip. While himself, they have their own ego pride. Ego trip going on there, so this whole thing is going in fiasco. Right, and he kind of have the same mentality as them because he was CEO just like them.
Well, they can still consider him president.
Right, they still consider him as president. At the same time, they also have investors that they have to answer to. Right, that they managing their money, and they got a job online too. Right, the thing was supposed to be done quietly, but this man blew this whole thing out of proportion. This thing is in the news now. Now you know all the CEOs that he has been, you know, having start different commission group with. You know, and those guys, they don't like to have the spotlight on them. The only time they want the spotlight on them is when their company is doing good. Right? Then when they report their earnings and things are doing good, that's the only time they want the spotlight. But when it comes to fighting and things like that, they don't want that publicity. Right? Because those guys, they have PR, they have management group that's managing the brand, and that's gonna tarnish their brand. They don't want to be part of that. But it's their fight. Let them fight.
Maccabees go 11-9.
Con. So Maccabees 11:9 goes with 12, verse 12.
Maccabees, 1-3 go to 12.
Right.
And he said,
yeah.
Ecclesiastes 11:12.
All right, so let's go back to 1 Maccabees, and now we are at verse 14. Yep. This man, again, he's a guy that they want to break. But to break him, that's going to be a lot of damage. To break him in, he's going to do much damage before they break him in. You know, try to have him confused, advise him to make one message and knowing that message is going to mess him up. So that first, for example, the first message that he gave, he should have just stayed with that message. Then he came out and changed course and say something different. Now he started to come.
I think he talked too fast, and then he came back and all his words up when he was talking. You know what I mean? Like when he put all his words out, what he want to say, he misinterpreted what he said, and then he got to go back and check it out himself.
All right, so go back to verse 13 now. Also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. You see that?
Yeah.
Whom they want to help, they help, right?
Right.
And those that they want to dispose of, they dispose of.
Right.
And then once they do that, they are greatly exalted.
Exalted.
They greatly exalted because they came in and do what they want in your country, change government, and those who with them, they good, they keep it in position, and those who they don't want, they get rid of you. Quick time. Yeah, quick time, and then they were greatly exalted.
Exalt means get rid of.
No, when you exalt someone, you put them high.
You put what?
You put them high, high esteem.
Okay.
And in verse 14 now, yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby.
Right.
Right? None of them were exalted, none of them were crowned to magnify. So meaning, I put you there, but don't rock the boat. Just keep your position and don't glorify yourself higher than you there. We keep in mind we put you there. Right, keep level ground. We put you there. The minute that you buck up, we'll get rid of you. You see that happen throughout the world.
It's like now, right?
Right.
Certain people go into this Trump administration, they get a position, all of a sudden they're out.
They are. You cannot have an opinion. And if you have an opinion, it must be to serve the benefit of master. That's the only thing that we want you to do. But you cannot have an independent opinion where you come in and have an independent idea, contrary to the democratic idea and Republican idea.
Very true.
Anything other than that, we got to get rid of you. It's a dictatorship, and we don't deal with dictators. So you either adopt Democrat, Republican.
Right.
You see, they got rid of.
What's the rule now? Republican?
Huh?
What Trump got behind?
Republicans. Right? It's either we rule through republics or Democrat. You go throughout the world now, except you go to China, North Korea, and places like Iran, right? Even them, right? They have their religion,
Right.
but the political system is more so geared towards democratic.
You got the same type, same Democratic Republican.
Right. So you have in China now, they have the revolutionary, the communists.
Okay.
And they are very tight. And America is doing whatever he can to see if they can infiltrate. But that's a tough one to break. So you had the Soviet Union under communism.
Right.
That fell. Right? Now you have Castro, right? Who had communism.
Yeah, he had communism.
Yeah, you got communism. They trying to infiltrate, go over there. See, once you open borders and let them in, you're gonna have to either adopt Republican and democratic, ideology, political system, or you're gonna have problem. So you have to reform.
So that's what happened.
That's what's going on. That's what's going on right now, right? With them try to open diplomacy with Cuba now. That's what is gearing towards.
Now they broke everything down for him.
No, now he did. He went well, but now you have his brother Raul now.
Oh, you got a brother in there?
His brother is in there, but as the main leader, who spearheaded any revolution he has to make sure that he has soldiers or he has a successor that share the same idea. That's even not like him, but even add more, become better than him.
Well,
But you cannot to try to put any leader trying to put themselves in any leader's shoes, right? Sometimes you're gonna fall short. You either bring something that is add on to what the person, but you gotta rise up to be better.
It's that's good. Very down, but you don't have up to date modern cars, and the industry is good right now because they have to trade and go you down.
No, they haven't broke him down yet, but you know they got a plan, and the plan we already know it is regime change, Democratic or Republican. That's it. Because that's what the last beast, the extension of this Roman Empire that we in, that's how they rule, right? As we read in is the understanding we get from Revelation, right? So China still have communism now, right? And you have North Korea, which is the power structure is ruled by one family. It's like an empire, it's a dynasty, right? So there's no regime change. And China doesn't want a regime change because it won't be good for them, right? So they want it to stay the same. So when you see all these things happening, America and other countries stood up to them, knowing that it's the Mossad that's breaking down from inside out, right? To come into, the second coming of Yahushua. Right? So now when we read in verse 13, it said, also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted, right? Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. So you got to play your position knowing that the superpower puts you there. Quote unquote superpower puts you there. Now, and it's either our way or we change you.
Our way or the highway.
Right. Or we change your system. So they put Saddam Hussein in power. He came in, learned about their system, and he went and tried to do a 360. Said, nah, my friend, you can't do that. You can't do that. It's either our way or we destroy your country.
That's 180.
Yeah, they did a 180. Right? They did a 180. So that's the same mentality back then. It's the same mentality now. Even in our own country, where, even though the country where our people reside in the Caribbean island, right? A lot of our people reside. The same type of situation going on. They always have a hand in the foreign policy. That's why they have foreign policy, administration. Why would they have a foreign policy administration? So that they can control the country.
So nobody can come to here and take over.
So they can control the people's country. It's good that you have good relations with people, with relations with other countries to trade, but not in the sense of you want to change the way their way of life.
Right.
And that's what Judas wanted to make sure that he learn about them and see of enmity he can have with them while keeping our law, statutes, and commandments, which is always, something that they don't like because they would think that they are better than you.
True.
They want to think that they are better than you. Even though you keep your law, but keep in mind, we allow you to keep your law, but we better than you. And the minute that you think otherwise, nah, so you can't keep your laws no more. If it's your law that making you think like that, we don't want you to keep your laws no more, because we are America. Right. We are America. And anything goes in America, it's free for free thinking. That's what they make you think. Free thinking. Do as you please.
Okay.
Satan, Satan doctrine.
Okay.
Because they are, again, the representation of Satan here.
Okay.
Verse 15 now. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house. Here we go. A senate house wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered. You see, Judas knew that. Judas knew it. See, they have the Senate, House of Representatives.
Right.
They have the Senate. So now, what do they have in the Caribbean islands? They have a Senate. In Haiti, they have a Senate, right? They have a House of Representatives. Same doctrine coming from Roman Empire. Right? What do they have in Iran? They have a Senate.
Right.
They have a House of Representatives. Everywhere you go around the world,
Right.
they adopt, in most part of the world, not to say everywhere, you have Democratic, Republican.
Right.
Right? Meaning, let the people vote.
Okay.
Right? Even the people's decision might be outrageous, but let the people vote. Even though it may not set according to reason, let the people vote.
Okay.
So the people can elect a lunatic. It doesn't matter. Let the people vote. Right? And if the people want homosexuality, let the people vote.
As we had in class last night, and here go the verses to it, because we have a client, and changing your class one, client, and we went by. He came in there and Ben said something. He said, "Well, I like men and women." That stopped the whole class. I got these verses. We talked about that on the break, but yes, you see. And no, down there at our other place, 74th and Andrew, and Ben gave him these verses, all of us while we was there.
Right. At the same time, they tell you that you can think as you please, but yet, as you think, you're thinking as you please. Try to act on it outside of the, outside of the system that is being set up. You'll see what happens. Right? It says, moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered. So now Judas wasn't a man that just go around with weapon and start fighting people like a crazy man, right?
Right.
He learned politics. He learned how politics work.
Right.
Not to say that he was a political guy, but he learned how politics work, how these people run their politics, their political system. Sit around and observe how these people do.
Right.
Okay? Verse 16. And that they committed their government, right? So they committed their government to one man every year, right? So 1 man every year you have a president, an elected president.
1 year.
1 man every year.
They
Right?
one on to the group.
1 man, this is the government, 1 man every year. Who rule over all their countries.
Okay.
Right? Who rule over all their countries. See? Their country. Who rule over their country. Now, people are gonna say this book is an old book.
This is real here.
This is real stuff right here. Right? Stuff that we are witnessing happening right now as the extension of the empire going today. Right? And that all were obedient to that one. At this point right now, no one obedient to that one right there. Now now you see a lot of firing going on. Benin is gone. They don't want to work with him. CEO drop out. Right? Obey to one man.
Right.
What is that saying? The old way of that, the way things used to work, it's crumbling. Right? So that's what we are witnessing right now.
Right.
Okay. It says, in that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. That's not what we see in the Republican Party. You always used to say that they stick together, right?
Right.
That's not what we are witnessing right now. Verse 17. In consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus. So as he sat down and mapped out and observed the way they do business, in observation, you watch. Now he's gonna say, what's the best course of action to take for my people? Right. Because that's what he's seeking for, right? To be able to keep our law, statutes, and commandments, and then able to cope with society. But keep in mind, we're in the midst of all different nations.
Right.
So we have to be aware, right? So that we can live. Right. So otherwise, we will be persecuted day and night.
Yeah.
Right? So now your leaders should be looking out for your best interests. How do we coexist among all these people without being seen as a deterrent? Right? So that's what this guy's sitting down and analyze all these things and sitting down. Okay, now we got rid of all these people who were oppressing us, all these armies who were oppressing us. But this is not what we about. We want to live. So how do we go about these things? So these people, they went, they conquered, they do this, they do that, they do this. Right? Now, how do we establish ourselves and still be able to live among them in peace and still be able to keep our law, statutes, and commandments? That's exactly what he's doing right here.
Oh, okay. I think that was a question.
Judas.
Judas.
Yeah, Judas Maccabees.
He followed God's laws.
Gone.
Right.
It says, in consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Archos, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome. So now he composed a delegation of the men that he believed can represent the people, can represent Israel. Right? To make a league of amity and confederacy with them. Right? To see, okay, how we coexist in the midst of the wicked. Knowing that his time ain't come yet, Yahushua has to come and deliver them from the enemy. But in the meantime, how do we live? While we're waiting for Yahushua to come in.
We follow his laws and commandments.
Right, we follow his law and commandments. Now we still got to go to work amongst them.
Right.
Right? We still got to live with them.
Mm-hmm.
How do we maintain that sanity while we know that they are the wicked? How do we maintain that sanity and keep our law, statutes, and commandments in the midst of them while we waiting for Yahushua to come in? Keep the law, statutes, and commandments. Read the Bible. Right? That's number one. That's without a question. But yet, how do we coexist? Right? How do we maintain? How do you go to a job where you have Esau, you have Elam, you have Moab, right? And as well as the other nations, right? They have their own law, they have their own statutes, and now you're living in America, right? In the land of North, where you have, you're supposed to have tolerance for these people, knowing that you could get rid of them because they're not doing what the Most High is doing. How do we maintain that sense of ourselves in the midst of a wicked people? So that's where Judas made the judgment and see, okay, how we gonna do that? So he create a group of people amongst our people and go over there. But before you go there, you gotta learn you gotta learn how they deal. You have to learn their strategy.
Right. That's the word. Right.
Right? You gotta learn their strategy. But if you underestimate them and or you don't learn about their history, you might find yourself jam up, right? And that could be, against your own safety, right? To be safe in the environment, you have to learn about the enemy. Okay, not to follow his ways and do his ways, but to know how they deal. Right? In verse 18, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecian did oppress Israel with servitude. So now, how do we go and have enmity so that the yoke can come against our neck? Because the Grecians, they had put us into great bondage, right? When they rule, we suffer against them because we had a yoke of iron upon our neck, just like in slavery. So we were completely enslaved under them.
Complete.
Right? So now how we get that yoke over us, over from our neck, right? While we maintain our way of life here. Verse 19. They went therefore to Rome, which was a very great journey. Right? It's not like you just hop on a plane today, in a couple hours you're in Rome. Right? Sometimes you have to go by boat. Right? You have to hop on that boat, and then you go. Now, so they send their representative to the Senate. Right? To the Senate. It's just like going to Capitol Hill. Right? Going to Capitol Hill now, go to DC and try to represent your people. Right? Which was a very great journey to the Senate, where they spake and said, Judas Maccabeus with his brethren and the people of the Jews have sent us unto you to make a confederacy and peace with you, and that we might be registered your confederate and friends. Which to Judas, you already knew their dealings. They like, to have friendship with other people, right? Verse 21. So that matter pleased the Romans well, as expected. And this is the copy of the epistle which the Senate wrote back again in tables of brass and sent to Jerusalem, that there they might have by them a memorial of peace and confederacy. So now we're going to read the letter. Good success be to the Romans. So that's what the Romans wrote back to Judas, to the people. And to the people of the Jews, to the people of the Jews, to the Israelites, right? To the people of the Romans is writing to the people of the Jews, Israelites, so-called black people. Right. So where the hell do these people come from today calling themselves Jews? Good question.
These Romans right here, were these white Romans right here?
Yes.
Okay.
So they writing to the Jews, and the Jews came from Jerusalem, go to the Senate, and they writing back to the Jews. Are those people, lose their head now, not thinking that these so-called Jews, they are the real Jews?
They believe they are.
Right?
They believe they are.
Them Khazars.
Yeah.
Then those people, man. And this is the cut. Okay. Good success of the Jews, to the Jews by sea and by land forever.
Right.
By sea and by land forever. You see that thing right there was more so. The sea was a big thing to us, and land was a big thing to us, right? By sea and by land.
They didn't have air yet.
Right. They didn't have, the airplane.
They're gonna flew us in here as slaves.
Right.
They didn't have air yet.
Yeah.
We have land, sea.
Yeah.
Land, sea, and
They
air.
land. So now, when they write things to countries now, they include air in it.
Yeah.
Even treaties that they sign with different countries, if they pursuing you, they pursuing fugitive that come in, hide in your country. They have the right, to go by sea, by land,
Right.
and by air, to catch the enemy in your hand. So now that's part of today's, treaties and today's enactment that they have when they write things to different countries, because that's, air is now part of it. Now, right here was sea and land.
Even now we have like air rights. You can't go into certain territories.
Yeah.
Right.
They have the air rights.
Right.
Instead of land, sea, and air. But
Right.
They had the land. And
Right.
the sea.
Kind of like when they have no flying zone.
Yeah.
There's no flying zone.
Flying zone.
Right. So you're in my territory. No
Like
flying zone.
Antarctica.
Right.
Yeah.
Shoot it down.
But who owns Antarctica?
Right. So we're gonna find out.
All right.
Later on, we're gonna find out.
All right.
All right. So now let's stay on course. Okay. So let's read again. It says, "And enemies by far from them, by sea and by land forever." But these people, you cannot take that there forever for forever. The sword also, an enemy be far from them. So now, meaning today, we have the air missiles,
Yeah.
the intercontinental ballistic missiles. So now we have what they call the missile shield, the defense shield. That's what they got more advanced today, to the point where now we're talking about, the missile defense shield,
Right.
right? Because they can shoot missiles from their country
Over here.
over here,
Right.
Wow.
right?
And they got
So now it says
they got
also, and any enemy by far from them. So meaning anybody that's far from you, as long as you are allies, you are protected, right? Now you have NATO, with America, the NATO allies. If you attack one, you attack all. We're gonna get involved, right? And so on.
also while they got detective skills, against missiles too.
Right,
But they can detect it.
right. So now they have radar that can detect missiles, like the brother said, right? So they thought about that now,
And they strike it down.
right? In verse 25, verse 24, if there come first any war, here you go. So when you sign a treaty, first is against war, right? You want to make sure that you are protected.
Right.
Upon the Romans, if there come first any war upon the Romans or any of their confederates throughout all their dominions, So meaning now, even if we have an island that we have our base there, if you attack it, you attack our country. It's our dominion.
Right.
Right?
They got a problem.
So we remember Rome, they were still, as we read earlier, they were going to different countries far, put their bases there. This is not something that has started now. America, extension of Rome, they do the same thing. Okay? Senate, they do the same exact thing. Okay? Verse 25. The people of the Jews shall help them. So now, yeah, because that's part of the treaty now. Because now we become allies. It comes with the package.
Right.
So what happened is we came in as for peace, but there's there's things that come with the package. The people of the Jews shall help them, and the time shall be appointed with all their heart. So the time shall be appointed with all their mind. You got to put it in it, right? So the thing is, you cannot stop dancing, right? You got to be all in. You got to be in or you out. You got to be all in. Yeah, with all your might, you got to put it in. Like today, you have Germany. If US have something going on with Russia, they like, man, I don't know, man. We got to think about this, Now things are changing because they have more at stake. Economically, countries have more at stake.
Yeah.
Right? They have, a lot on the table. And what they have at stake is you have wealthy people who make deals with the other group that you're going to fight with. That makes things difficult. Right. If I'm making deals in this country, I'm in a large part of my stake is in this country because now things have become quote unquote globalized, right? I have tie with this industry, tie with that industry. It makes things difficult now to become allies and go fight wars. Right? That's what things become more intricate, where Esau's system is catching up to itself. Right? Because now there's no loyalty to countries. There's no loyalty to government, but there's loyalty in deals in my pocket, deals in my stick.
So basically, if they write on paper, you're supposed to keep to it, right?
If you write it on paper, you're supposed to keep to it. But right now, wealth, guiding by deceit, commingle with politics, make things difficult for countries to keep their agreement. Right? If it's government to government, the government's supposed to collect taxes, and that's how they run and live private sector to do their private sector things without getting involved into government dealings, then it's different. But when you have the private sector get involved, you have all these CEOs coming into the White House trying to make deals. Things, it's not going to work. It's going to get out of hand because everybody's sticking for deals. So it makes ruling the government according to justice, according to just balance, and just the balance now is going to be leaning on one side. And you cannot have justice where the balance is still on one side. Government should make sure that infrastructure runs, right? Provide infrastructure for business to come and invest in your country, while they keep, their distance from things that has to do with government. But now when you have the politicians running for politics, and you have the Koch brothers financing those politicians, right? The Koch brothers.
I thought that's what he said. I was going to say the Koch brothers.
Well, you have those people funding politicians. You have the JP Morgan. You have banks, right? Banks getting involved into funding political things. Now things become more confused. Now the government cannot stand because the head of the state now is in cahoots with them. You see? But you know what? It's good things because the Most High confuse them and make them not be able to keep their words among themselves, and things gonna fold.
So
You're gonna bring a lot of confusion because let's say if Russia making deals and he has rich people for the sake of expansion and money want to invest in your deals. So now I have deal in NATO, and one NATO country has problem with another NATO country. We got to resolve it to diplomatic means. Now that's where diplomatic means come in. Let's talk. Let's bring it to the table. So now it has to be diplomacy. Now you cannot, all of a sudden you go to war to resolve things through diplomatic means. Now you have China, it's the same thing that's going on right now. Have a lot of deals with America, most of their cheap goods and being exported here in America to consume. And while you have the U.S. private sector go to China, making deals with the Chinese government to establish their company there and bring the good back here, it makes it difficult to go in conflict and start, go blow to blow.
Okay.
Because now there's more at stake, more economic means at stake. Now the politics mixing with the economics make it very difficult.
Right. That's what I'm here.
Right. So it's the three things: politics, economics, and religion.
Okay.
So now you have the economics and the politics mixed together.
Right.
You got big problems.
That's right there. Politics, economics, religion. All right.
For the most part, what's working right now that keeps us people enslaved is the religion.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's the religion. Right? Even that, they get control of the religion too. Because they make the religion non-profit.
Right.
You don't have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Right? And then we're gonna fund you.
Yeah. Give you some more.
Give you some money.
Right.
So you preach this kind of doctrine.
Yeah.
The minute that you stop preaching that doctrine,
Now that's the very book.
we cut your money. Yeah, we cut your money. So now the religion is more so subliminally independent. But the politics, because of the money, is intertwined with each other and become corrupt. So it's very difficult for them to go to war. So now they got to try to resolve things through diplomatic means. So that's why you see China stop dancing, US stop dancing, Russia stop dancing. But it's going to come a time where all the tap dance is going to be finished. When the Mossad said, press the button, let's get started.
Right.
And then you're going to say, you're going to have fire and fury, like the guy said. That's when you're going to have the fire and fury.
It's getting heated now.
Right. It's just, warming up. The microwave is warming up. Right? Now, let's finish reading. Now we at verse 26. You got it. Neither shall they give anything unto them that make war upon them, or aid them with victuals, weapons. Victual is food. So, you know what that means? Anybody that wage war against Jews or against any of our allies, what's going to happen? Embargo. That's what they're speaking right there. Embargo. Don't give them food. You cut their food supply. Right? That's what happened in Iran the other day, the few years where they put the embargo on Iran. But you know what? America got so weak, and diplomatic ties has become one of the things that the other countries also imitate from Esau. They develop diplomatic means too. So the same thing that you're doing, I'm doing too.
Right.
I'm gonna have my own allies because I know I can trust you. At any time you can renege. So I gotta have somebody who have my back. So Iran had his own allies. So he was doing deals with China. doing deals with Russia, right? Doing under the table deal with Germany, even though Germany was part of the embargo.
They all doing,
right? So now, what is that supposed to do? It's to weaken you from within. If you don't give up people in the country food, what's going to happen? They're going to start dying. And before they die, you know what's going to happen? They're going to start rioting.
Yeah.
They're going to rise against that government. And then once they rise up against that government, their wish is granted. They take you out, they put their people, they take off the embargo, then the people got food supply again. Here you go. America is the number one. The people in the country start saying America is the number one. When the American soldiers start coming to there, everybody start cheering.
right.
Because now we're gonna find food. We're gonna find food.
That's automatically when they
Right?
come.
Because once your mouth got openings, you gotta eat. The belly gotta be full, right? You gotta eat. So what's gonna happen? People are gonna rise up. People are gonna rise up against you, and once the food comes, they're gonna start cheering for America.
Right.
And that's what we see all throughout the world as America become, the superpower that
Right.
you think that he is.
That's how you look at it.
Right? So food. They cut the food supply. Weapons.
Right.
Weapons. If you cannot get weapons, what happened in your country? You get killed. Now, people start selling the weapon that they have internally for food.
Right.
They start making deal with the supply they have.
Right.
You have policemen now start selling guns to civilians.
Right.
And what the civilians need the gun for? To go rob people to eat. Right? To go rob people to eat. So they create the instability in your country through those means. So that's why you see back in the Caribbean country, once that happened, what comes next? Once they put the embargo, you start seeing people getting killed in the street. Where do they find the guns for? Because the gun now become a commodity that people need to go hunt for food, to go hunt people for food, not animal for food, to go hunt people who they know that they got the means, right, to survive. Right? They stop the weapons. And once they stop the weapons in your country and your army, what happened? What they stop the weapon in your country and your army, what happened?
You're gonna get killed.
Your army become weak.
Okay.
You being susceptible for a neighboring country to come attack you.
Right. Other countries.
Right. So your sovereignty is threatened. So once your sovereignty is threatened, the people are going to rise up again because they don't want to get overtaken by other countries,
Right.
because they want to maintain their independence.
Right.
Also, once they start taking away your weapons, the weapons that you have become old. The weapons become old. So now you cannot fight any war with any other countries. So they dismantle you right from within for food supply, because when they cut the food supplies, the people in government, they still eat, they still have food. Who really suffer is the civilian. Right? So the regular people, they are the one who suffer. Because they still have, once they have embargo on food, you got people who become richer because now they smuggling food in the country, and then the supply is at a minimal. The demand is high. They're making more money.
Right.
So few people get rich of these things. And usually the people who get rich is people who tie in to that same political system. They're allowed to do deals under the table. Right? That's a whole different story. So food, weapons, money.
Hey.
Once your money cannot be exchanged with other countries Inflation. Inflation start to happen. Or ships. Once ships start coming, trade stop. Oil cannot come in from different things that you trade with other countries, right? For your trade balance,
Right. Cut it out.
cut it out.
So you can't get through.
All right.
Well, people,
As he have, so those guys they don't play. Now, if it was today, we're gonna say no flying zone,
Right.
no blind zone.
right?
Shoot them down.
Not no people cannot easily, transit from one place to the next to make business with each other.
Right.
Well, you know it.
Right. As it have seemed good unto the Romans,
Right.
and this is all in the letter. This is the stipulation in the letter. But they shall keep their covenants without taking anything therefore. Right? So this is, once you keep your obligations, you got to keep your obligations without anything in return. Right? So you got to keep your obligation without anything in return. Meaning, when you keep your obligation, don't expect us to pay you. If you're going to help us, you're going to fight wars, we don't got to pay you for that. It's your duty.
Right.
It's your obligation as an ally.
As an ally.
Right. If you're going to spend, you got to spend your own money, just be it.
Right.
You got to keep your obligation as an ally.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of being the woman's ally.
Okay.
Okay?
That's the way.
Right. So just as they have decided, that's how it's going to be. So now the U.S. think they slick. They formed the United Nations, and they use the United Nations so that people don't see that they taking unilateral decision.
Okay. That's
So-
why you the United Nations.
Right. So they pass their sanction and embargo through the United Nations. So now countries that are part of the United Nations, once they put an embargo on you, is a way to enlarge, their sanction, right, to one country, by having a group of legal nations together, so they can oppress other nations.
Hey,
Right. So right now, they have embargo on North Korea, but that same thing that we're talking here to weaken them. But
Same thing.
how you gonna have China put sanction on North Korea when China doesn't want the regime to change,
Right.
right? And they share a border with each other. What do you think is gonna happen? Smuggling gonna happen. They still gonna trade, but on paper they're gonna say, yeah, we agree, but they're gonna do back deals.
They still gonna do what they make.
They still gonna do it. Not only that, China is neighboring countries with North Korea.
Okay.
That can never happen because the survivalship of North Korea depends on China
Okay.
for food supply.
Very good.
So you think China want riots right next door to him?
No.
What do you think is gonna happen? People, once there's a riot, they're gonna flee from.
They'll get out of it.
They're gonna get out of there and flee from China. China is already have a large population. You think they're gonna let that happen?
No.
So the same way U.S. think they slick, they gotta know that other countries become slick just as them, because they use their same tactic that they use against them. Right?
What is that? They said the Jews won't help them.
Yes, so we become allies.
That's verse 23.
So we got to do it without taking anything in return, right?
Why did you kill?
Verse 27. In the same manner also, if war come first upon the nation of the Jews, the woman shall help them with all their heart. So they're gonna help them also with all their mind, right? Put their all into it. If we get attacked, according as the time shall be appointed them. So when we declare war, or war is declared upon us, they're gonna come also.
Allies.
The allies, they're gonna come also.
Hey, what's the purpose of the United Nations?
The purpose of the United Nations is to have countries come together under one agreement and have different treaties that would be beneficial for all those countries that are part of the United Nations.
That's what it's called, the United Nations.
Right. But when you but when you think of it, those countries funding, they're supposed to fund the United Nations.
Okay, keep going.
Right. But really, the United Nations is more so benefiting the US because the US has used the United Nations, you know, for their own purpose. For example, when they had to attack,
That's infiltrating.
right, when they had to divide the North and the South Koreans, they used the United Nations, and they funded 80 to 85%, right, of the war, which is not supposed to be.
Okay.
Right, so they can go out and find the means just to go and divide those people.
Okay. United Nations.
Yeah, he did it. They did it through the United Nations,
Oh, okay. That's
just so that it can seem fair. But it is unfair system.
Because it was the United States. So all of them that's in the United Nations, they're supposed to be considered as allies and help to come.
And there's a gimmick into the voting system in the United Nations as well.
All that today has been.
Yeah. Con, let's move on. Yeah, the United Security Council, it's all a sham.
Sitting here lying to each other around a big table.
All right, it says, and Jews is okay, verse 28 now.
Right.
Neither shall victuals be given to them that take part against them. So anybody that take part against us, shut their food supply. Shut their food supply.
Okay.
Or weapons. Or ships, as it have seemed good to the Romans. But they shall keep their covenants, and that without deceit. The deceiver is talking about not deceiving. How is that going to happen? Verse 29. According to these articles, did the Roman make a covenant with the people of the Jews. Albeit, if hereafter the one party or the other shall think meet to add or diminish anything, they think they the most high, that you cannot add or take away from this agreement, right? Anything, they may do it as their pleasures, and whatsoever they shall add or take away shall be ratified. They have what they call a bylaw. A bylaw or an amendment to add on to what's already there or make a change to what's there. Then it got to go to the House of the Senate in the House of the Representative to get it ratified, to get it passed.
Okay.
And that's what you see going on all throughout there. This bill, that, this person write this bill, that bill, and then they go there and then go back and forth and stuff like that. So it was always the same thing back then. It's the same thing that they instituted now.
On the cartoons, I used to look at when I was a little kid. The name was Bill. Yes, I'm only a Bill. And I'm sitting right here, Captain to him. My mom said in Spain, but he just said, she told me just all that meant. But she said it in no way. I said, for real, they do that? They sit there and lie all day, man.
Yeah.
That's why I beat you when you lie to me. I said, okay. Go ahead, before I just they do. Sit there and lie. I got you, man. I got you too. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Yeah. Why they do that way? You see exactly what I'm talking about. I understand now. Where we at? 31.
Done. So those are the terms that's in the agreement, right? What they call an enactment. So now they can have amendments. They can have different amendments to it. You can take away by amendments. Bylaws, you can add
while
bylaws.
I'm at it,
Right, you can add. Right, if you find out later on, as society progress, you see that certain things start happening which you did not see before. You can put an amendment to it. And as touching the evils that Demetrius doeth to the Jews, we have written unto him, saying, wherefore, as thou made thy yoke heavy upon our friends and confederate the Jews, reason why we go in, still keep our identity. You see that? We went in keeping our identity. We don't go there with our head bowed down and thinking that we are Romans. We went there as Jews, right? Seeking amity with another power structure, right? Not as pretending that we are them, right? We are Jews, right? It says, I mean, that you're heavy upon our friends and confederate the Jews. If therefore they complain anymore against thee, we will do them justice and fight with thee by sea and by land. So, we're gonna get you by sea and by land. So now, as by sea and by land is less fought, sea, predominant way now. Air now is the number one, has become the number one. Right. And sea becomes second. And now land is the last resort.
Run!
Because land, too many casualties. Yeah. Too many casualties. Yeah, too many casualties. Before, it's the last resort now. So you see, war has changed nowadays. Where
professional.
It's become more
technology.
That's right. So Germany, to defeat Germany, they did it by air.
Right.
They went over there and just bombed the heck out of them. Yeah.
Done. So now that concludes chapter 8. We're gonna take a brief recess, right, and we will come back at 1:38.
Around 2:30, I'm gonna get up and